Ciao, mi chiamo Emilia. Hello, my name is Emily, and today we're going to learn some interpersonal conversations in Italian to help you speaking Italian. This video was specifically made with a high schooler in mind, though there are a lot of aspects that any adult or kid could learn from. This first section is how to describe yourself, your school, your address, your age, and your phone number. Let's get started. What's your name? Is come ti chiami? Now, technically, this is the casual way of asking the question. So this is the way to ask friends and family. Again, this is come ti chiami. And to answer it, I would say mi chiamo and then my name. For example, my name is Emily, so in Italian, it would be Emilia. AKA, this would be mi chiamo Emilia. I am called Emily. Where do you come from? Like, where were you originally from? Da dove vieni? Da dove vieni? When I answer this, I could include io if I want to. Io technically means I, but it's generally included when you want to emphasize something. So you could skip it and say vengo da, and then you need to plug in wherever you're from. Now, the problem is that when you plug in the next word, it also changes da just a little bit because you have to use da plus the word the, and there's 7 tha's in Italian, so it's very specific to what the next word is. So if you want to go ahead and look up where you're from and then use Google Translate or something like that to be able to figure out which the goes with the place where you're from. Here's some examples though. If I wanted to say I come from England, I really am saying I'm coming from the England. Vengo dal Inghilterra. Or if I want to say I come from the United States, this is vengo dagli, not dagli, it's a y, not a gl, dagli Stati Uniti. And you might have realized United States got switched to States United. So this is vengo dagli Stati Uniti. Of course, I could be more specific than this, but this is the setup. Of what nationality are you? Di che nazionalità sei? Di che nazionalità sei? I sono, unless I want to emphasize, I could say io sono, and then you just plug in what nationalities you are. Of course, there's a gazillion nationalities. So here are some, but of course, if you are something else, just look that up, and then you'll know how to answer this question. Keep in mind that if you're more than one nationality, you'll need the word and, which is e. And for any words on this page that have an A, you will change the last letter to an O if you're a guy. So girls will end with a guy will end with an O. There are just a few words though on here that end with an E, and that you'll just keep the same whether it's a guy or girl saying who they are. So here's some examples. Sono americana, I'm American. Sono inglese, I'm English, like from England. Though of course that could also be like you speak English. Sono britannica, being also specific, I'm British. Sono spagnola, I'm Spanish, meaning from Spain. Sono italiana, I'm Italian, aka from Italy, etc. And if I was saying more than one, like if I want to say I'm American and British, sono americana e britannica. How old are you? Quanti anni hai? Now, when I answer this question, of course, I can just say the number. Though if I'm doing a whole sentence, I'd say oh, which is really I have. Plug in the number next, and then end with anni, which is years. So for an example, of course, I'm not going to tell you my real age, but for an example, I could say ho 35 anni. I am 30, 5 years old. I'm 35 years old. Not really, just making up a number. But of course, this is going to change greatly upon who's answering this question. So if you don't know numbers yet, go and at least figure out how to say your age. But on the screen is also how to say numbers 1 through 9, which are the core numbers to know in Italian. If you know those, then you really just have to memorize 11 through 19 and then know how to count by tens. And then you know mostly how to count. So in case you don't know numbers 1 through 9, we have uno, due, tre, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'll pause it there. All right, so just a reminder that if I want to say another example, I'm 5 years old. Ho 5 anni. When were you born? Quando sei nata? If I'm asking a girl ending with an A, or quando sei nato if I'm talking to a guy ending with an O. So then when I answer this, I also got to keep in mind the A and O's. So sono nata, I was born, me a girl speaking. Here's an example, March 10th, il 10 marzo. So obviously you'd have to know the number for the date and also the month. Il is meaning the word the, it's just a little connecting word they add in. And then if you want to say the year, then you have to know how to say the year too. For anything over the 2000, you start with 2000, which means 2000, and then you add in whatever the number is next. So if I said 2005, I'm going to say 2005. So I don't put in the and, 2005, I just say 2005. If I was gonna say like 1970, I could just say 70, which is settanta. So it really just depends, obviously, what year you're saying, as in how to say that. For anything in the 1900s that is greater than what year it is right now. All right, so think about that. If it was 2025, then if anything 2026 onwards, then if it was in the 1900s, I could just say that number. So I could just say, instead of 1970, I can just say 70s, right? Just like English. So I can say setanta, 70. But if I want to say 1920 and we're already in 2025, you're going to have to say the whole 1920 phrase instead of just the 20s, because otherwise it gets confusing which one you're on about, right? So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you can abbreviate and sometimes you can't. So going over this again, I can say sono nata, or nato if I'm a guy, il 10 marzo, March 10th, 2005, if I'm saying 2005. Where do you live? As in, where do you live now? This would be dove abiti, and I would start this with abito a, I live in or at, and then plugging in a city or a place. Maybe I'm saying a house or apartment, or being more specific, a city. If I'm saying I live in London, I could say abito a Londra. Abito a Londra. Of course, again, the exact place you're living will vary. So you would have to look up if the word changes in Italian or if it doesn't. Some stay the same. What is your phone number? Okay, what is your cell phone number? Qual è il tuo numero di cellulare? Qual è il tuo numero di cellulare? All right, so what's your phone number? First, you got to start off with the area code. That's the first 3 digits generally that are included that say which area you're located, what state, and then there's sometimes more numbers added for countries, right? So what are the prefix? What does it start with? So you'd say those numbers first. Of course, you got to know numbers in Italian, so that's going to help you. And then after that, you add in the rest. So after the first 3 digits, let's say that it's 523. Okay, I'd say 5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3. And then the next few digits, you got 3 numbers, then 4 numbers. You could say them each individually as single digit numbers, or you could group them. Some people group them as saying double numbers until the last one, which would just be by itself, right? So you got 3 numbers and then 7 numbers. So that means you do the first 6 as together and then the last one by itself. So for example, if I said 3, 3, 4, so let's start there. 33 is going to be 33, 4, then I go to the next set. 5, so 45 is going to be 45, and then I have 3 more numbers, so then I could say 23, 23, and I have a leftover, right? So I just, if it's 1, it's like uno, right? So just randomly making up a number, but that's how you could do it. So you're going to group those first ones together, so then you have like counting by tens, and then the last one will be by itself, so not a double number for the last one. So to completely say this, I'd say il mio prefisso è, plug in the 3 digits, then my phone number is il mio numero di cellulare, my number of cell phone, è, and then plug in the whole number. What's your home address? Qual è il tuo indirizzo di casa? To answer this in a full sentence, you're going to have to know the coding for it. What do you put first? So first, let's just start off a sentence. My house address is il mio indirizzo di casa è. Next, I need street, but I'm going to say the word street first, which is via, and then plug in the street name. After that, numero, and then plug the number. A, and then put the town. All right, so all that together. Il mio indirizzo di casa è via, street, numero, number, a, town. Which high school do you go to? Quale liceo frequenti? Quale liceo frequenti? I attend, frequento, and then just plugging in the name of the school. Part 2 is how would you describe your Italian class in Italian? What is your Italian teacher's name? Come si chiama la tua professoressa d'italiano? Now, technically, professoressa is saying that it's a lady professor. So keep that in mind that this is the feminine version. If I'm answering this, of course, I could just say their name, but the way to do it in a whole sentence would be la mia professoressa, my professor, d'italiano, of Italian, si chiama, calls herself, and then just plugging in their name. For example, Rosa. So, whole sentence, la mia professoressa d'italiano si chiama Rosa. At what time does the lesson start? A che ora comincia, like commence, comincia la lezione? To answer this, of course, I could just say the time, but a whole sentence would start with the lesson, la lezione, starts, comincia, at depends what number you're putting next. So if I'm saying at 1, I'd say al una. If it's anywhere between 2 p.m. to 11, that also includes the AM. So any numbers from 2 to 11 for the hour start time, I'd do alle, and then those numbers. So alle 2 for 2, alle 11 for 11. Any numbers between 2 through 11 will start with alle. And then if it's noon, I'd say at noon. A mezzogiorno. Mezzo means middle, giorno means day. Now that's saying the exact hour, which most classes start on the hour. But if yours doesn't, then you would have to add in the minutes. Now that can get a little complicated, but basically you're just going to add in the word and then say numbers 1 through 29, if it is the minutes up through 30. If it is after 30 minutes, though, then you have to subtract. So you'd say the next hour minus however many minutes till. So for example, if my class started at 3:45, I'd say 4 minus 15. So I'd say alle at 4, 4, minus, meno, 15. Quindici. So 4 minus 15 minutes is really 3:45. How many students are there in the Italian class? Quanti studenti ci sono? How many students are there? Nella classe, in the class, d'italiano, the class of Italian. All right, when I answer this, of course, I could just say the number, but a whole sentence would start off with there are, which is going to be ci sono, plug in the number, and then studenti, students, in the class, nella classe of Italian, d'italiano. So putting an example here, I could say there are 10 students in the Italian class. Ci sono 10 studenti nella classe d'italiano. What are the guys like in the class? Come sono I ragazzi in classe? What are the guys like in the class? All right. Of course, I could just say describing words, but if I'm going to make a whole sentence, I'd say the guys in the class are I ragazzi in classe sono, and then I'd say describing words. Now keep in mind how adjectives work. So if it is ending with an O, such as the word good, buono. Well, now I have more than one guy here, so I have to change that O to an I, so buoni. So you can see an example on here. I could say, I ragazzi in classe sono buoni. The guys in the class are good, like they're good people. I could also use adjectives that usually end with an E in singular, like intelligent would be intelligente, but when I change it to plural, I need to change that E to an I, so intelligenti. So just keep that in mind when you're changing adjectives to plural masculine. So here's some examples. I could say, I ragazzi in classe sono intelligenti, buoni, e divertenti. What I just said is the guys in the class are intelligent, good, and funny. E is going to be the word and, just connecting right before our last adjective. What are the girls like in the class? Come sono le ragazze nell'aula? Now, aula and classe, they both mean class, just in case you're wondering why that changed since the last question. Now, ragazzi changed to ragazze because usually words that end with an I are for guys, and then letter E is going to be for girls. So that's why we have that change here. So when I'm describing stuff for girls, I have to keep in mind that if the describing word could be multiple different things, like the word good, buono, one guy, buona, one girl, buoni, guys, buone, girls. Not technically that word means good, but those are the different ways to describe based on who I'm describing. So buono is saying good for one guy. All right, so in this situation, since we're talking about girls, we're going to have to go with the E version. So you'll see that most of these are ending with the letter E. However, if the adjective started with the letter E in singular, I have to change it to a letter I. So words like intelligente, that is singular for intelligent. So I got to change it to plural, more than one. So I have to say intelligenti. So here's some possible examples of describing girls. Le ragazze in classe sono, the girls in the class are intelligenti, buone, simpatiche, divertenti. All right, so what I just said is the girls in the class are intelligent, good, like they're good people. Looks like sympathetic, it means kind or nice, and funny. All right, so I say divertenti. All right, so of course you don't have to say all those describing words. I just simply use the ones from the last page, except I added in one more option, which is simpatiche. Of course, there could be other describing words said here. At what time does the Italian class finish? A che ora finisce la classe d'italiano? So to answer this, of course, I could just say the time, but if I want to make a whole sentence and say the Italian class finishes at, then I'd start it with la classe d'italiano finisce, and then the at depends on what hour, right? Like we talked about earlier. So at 1, al una, at 2, alle due, and that will be the same pattern all the way up through 11. So I could say alle 11 at 11. At noon, a mezzogiorno, and that's how to say specifically if it ended on the hour. So if it's ending where there's minutes involved, then you got to add that on too. So if I'm dealing with minutes below 30 minutes, like below 2:30, for example, then I just add in those minutes. So if I want to say at 2:15, then I'd say alle 2:15, literally saying at 2 and 15. However, if it's after 30 minutes, I have to subtract from the hour above it. So if it was ending at 3:45, I'd have to say 4 minus 15. So I'd have to say alle, at, 4, 4, meno, minus, 15, 15, which is actually saying 3:45 or 15 minutes till 4. Where is the Italian class located? Dove si trova l'aula d'italiano? Dove si trova l'aula d'italiano? And then we take part of that question, we put it into the answer. So the class of Italian is found, and then we're going to have to give directions or change this to however specific we want to say. So here's the start of it. L'aula d'italiano si trova. The class of Italian is found. And here's some possible examples. At school, just very general, but at school, a scuola, beside the lockers, accanto agli armadietti, down the hall, in fondo al corridoio, sounds like corridor, corridoio, on the left, a sinistra, etc. It depends how specific you want to be, but there's some examples. What materials do you use in the class? Obviously, this is going to tweak depending on what class it is. Right now, we're talking about Italian class, so I'm going to presume a book, notebook, pen, pencil, eraser, and probably a few other things, but those are the things that I mentioned on here. So the question, what materials do you use in the class? Quali materiali usi in classe? Now, usi is saying, do you use? So when I answer, I've got to change that and say, I use. So, in classe, uso. In class, I use. And here's some examples. Un libro, a book. Un quaderno, a notebook. Una penna, a pen. Una matita, a pencil. And una gomma, an eraser. What do you do during the Italian lesson? Hopefully, you're not sleeping. But just thinking logically of some things that are probably included in most Italian lessons are grammar, verbs, writing, vocabulary, conversations, etc. So the question, what do you do during the Italian lesson? Cosa fai durante la lezione d'italiano? Then when I answer, of course, I could just start with I do, which is faccio, and go right into the answer. But if I want to do a whole sentence and include part of the question, I start with in the Italian lesson, nella lezione d'italiano, I do, faccio. So I do means faccio. It's an irregular verb, so that's why it looks quite different than the word fai, because fai was saying, do you do? Faccio is saying, I do. So let's say that first part again. In the Italian lesson, I do. Nella lezione d'italiano, faccio. And then I could do grammar, grammatica, verbs, verbi, writing, scrittura, nearly looks like scribble, vocabulary, vocabolario, and conversations, conversazioni. All right, let's say that second part again. So I do, faccio, grammatica, verbi, scrittura, vocabolario, conversazioni. Now, of course, you could shorten this or make it longer, depending on what exactly you wanted to say. If you loved this video, don't forget to follow us and also check out our bio where we have a link to free lessons and subscribing to information about our lessons. This way, you can hear about some upcoming private lessons that you can sign up for and even some group options. Message us to sign up today. Looking for more videos like this? Like and subscribe. And guess what? We also teach private and group Italian lessons through Knowledge Adventures in online sessions. So message us for details if you would like to learn more. Ciao!